expert, so I hope I don't mess up too much, but I'll do the best I can and share with you guys what I've been able to kind of get and gather with regards to the Columbia Lodge number 5 here in town, and then with regards to the Oddfellows and who I am in the cemetery, and what our focus and moving forward is for both the lodge and the cemeteries. So thank you for inviting me, and appreciate the opportunity to talk. So Independent Order of Oddfellows, Columbia Lodge number 5. So for those of you that don't know what the number 5 orientation is, and we'll get into more about where and how, we were the 5th charter in the state of Oregon. So we were the 5th lodge for the Oddfellows at that time, and that's where the 5 comes from. So we've been around a couple of years. Who I am. When I started this, I never in my life thought I would be working for a fraternal organization, never thought I would be burying people. I was in shoes, movie theaters, I did construction, and I retired myself for about 3 years, and just kind of enjoyed life and got back to life again after, working for a multi-billion-dollar company. So out of that, the gentleman that was in charge of everything, he said, "Hey, you need to get back to work. You shouldn't be retired at 37 years old. You need to do something." And so I talked to him, and he said, "I got a job for you. You need to come out to the Dalles." I said, "Okay." And at that time, I was over in Idaho, and I came this way because my roots are kind of in this area. I have family in this area. I have family actually at the cemeteries. I have family that's over in Hermiston that are still living, and they still live there. And so it really was a good move for me as well to come into the area, and I found some other connections in the area too. So there's lots of benefits to the area. Anyway, yeah, girlfriend's here, so. So I was asked to come out and kind of try and regroup the lodge, the cemetery, and get it back on track again. So that was what I was tasked with when I came out. Oddfellows. How'd they start? Does anybody know? Has anybody heard the story? You have.
We had that historical tours.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, so we did a historical tour of the lodge a few years back, and we did a couple of them for the PEO group. And it was a great opportunity to kickstart the lodge and the cemeteries and the organization after I came in. The story of the Oddfellows, for those that don't know what the story is, and that the Oddfellows have actually been around since about 1700. They started in England, and in England at that time, it was a time when disease, you were either a pauper or a noble. You had all the money in the world or you had nothing, and you were fighting to stay alive every single week. And if you didn't come up with your rent that week, they moved somebody else into your spot, into your home. And rent came first, money for food came second. And approximately 75 to 80% of your income went to rent. And then if you had enough left over, then you would go to eat. So when people died, because there was disease, famine, these people weren't being taken care of. They didn't have land to properly bury people. And so what was happening when these people died of the plague and whatnot, they would get wrapped in loincloth, and this is the story as I've heard it. They'd get wrapped in loincloth and then pushed into rivers, lakes, and which turns into more disease, so it was a perpetual circle. So during that time, there was a group of gentlemen that saw that there really was a need, and they needed to help their community and help the people in the community with what was happening and properly bury people to help their community. And so they were called it's those odd fellows that are helping their fellow man. And they're burying people. And so that's how they got their names off of a one-handed comment about who they were. And it was those odd fellows that were helping others. And it really was in a time when you don't help others. You're there for yourself, and if you aren't there for yourself, you don't make it. And so there are a few variations to that story, but the commonality of it is that it really was that a group of gentlemen were doing something that was out of the ordinary and helping their fellow man with no inclination of giving anything in return. They just did it because it was the right thing to do. But it did start in the 1700s, and out of that, so when somebody dies, they leave loved ones, and in those years, children, there was all sorts of children left over, orphans. And so part of our command of the Oddfellows is that we visit the sick. We relieve the distressed. So we visit them and try and help them out. And then we bury the dead and we educate the orphan. Because from those deceased people, they leave orphans, and we wanted to help. And so they built a lot of orphanages, which now in this day and age, we don't have the orphanages anymore because they're taken care of by the state. So we're actually doing more older age homes, care centers and things like that. Holt Center up in Portland. So the Oddfellows started in England. It was the early 1700s. There's no specific date that I've been able to find. I don't think anybody really knows. The first documentation in England from a lodge was 1730. And I don't know where it was. I don't have that information. But the unofficial lodges after that started here in the Americas around 1806. And that was, they were meeting, they weren't necessarily documenting anything, they didn't have a charter, anything else. But then in 1819, they actually did start the lodge. They started that. They had an actual charter. It came over from England and got the Oddfellows going. In 1842, the American lodges, it was the age-old English thing, and I'm not trying to bash anybody's English in here, but they wanted sole control over everything. They didn't want to listen to the American group and allow them to do any changes to their bylaws, their laws, anything else. They wanted to have sole control over the Americas as well. So what did the Americans do? They rebelled. So they split from the English, the lodges in England. They changed their name in 1843 to the Independent Order of Oddfellows. They're still around England lodges. We know them as International Order of Oddfellows. So they're still there, there's still a connection there, but they don't have any control over us in this area. So in any case. And part of the reason for the butting of heads and the dispute between the two factions, so to speak, was that they wanted a women's group. They wanted to allow women into the Oddfellows. England didn't. And that was one of the points of contention that they disputed and they fought against. And so that was one of the other things. So the Oddfellows in the United States or Americas, they actually were the first fraternal organization to allow women, both men and women, in the organization. So they were really forward thinking. Now, were they actually Oddfellows? No. And as some of you may know, the women's side of the Oddfellows is actually called the Rebeccas. And so that's the women's organization as part of the Oddfellows. But they still started it. It was Schuler Colfax that actually, who became a former vice president of the United States, that actually initiated that with the women. So a lot of forward thinking with regards to the Oddfellows and that kind of thing. Unique members, vice presidents, presidents. Wyatt Earp was an Oddfellow. I couldn't believe it when I found this when I was doing my research and looking up information about him and that Wyatt Earp was actually in, I think it was 1909. Yeah, 1909, March 3rd, 1909. This is his actual membership card. Photo of it, obviously. But, and then some of the other, Ulysses S. Grant, Warren Harding, Rutherford Hayes, William McKinley, Franklin D. Roosevelt. These are all Oddfellows through history that have been members. Lucy Hobbs Taylor, and she actually was the first female dentist in the U.S. So again, forward thinking, trying anyway. Three Links Fraternity Crest. So most of you, when you think of the Oddfellows, you see these. It's known as the Three Links Fraternity. There's a lot of connection with regards to that. The FLT, friendship, love, and truth. And those are really some of the things that we primarily stand by. I mean, we need those as friendship. We love our fellow man. And then out of truth comes everything else that we need, as a group. So we promote the principles as friendship, love, and truth. We have faith that there's a higher being. We have hope that things will always get better. And then charity. We give. We try and give. We give of ourselves. We give of our time. There's a number of things in, of course, universal justice. And so, as the fraternal group, we endeavor, as the slide says, I'll read a lot of it and I'll try and tell you guys offhanded what my comments are on it as well. But we live up to our fraternal crest that friendship, love, and truth are fundamental to the progress and betterment of humankind. So, those three things are fundamental for us as a group and an organization. So, the charter. How did we get started as Columbia Lodge? There was a group of 6 men. It was back in 1853. They had decided that they wanted to start this organization, the Dallas. And they got together. They made a request of the Eastern Main Lodge for the U.S. And they sent out a charter in 1853. They actually sent it on a ship. And I still don't understand why they would do that. It makes no sense to me. But I guess for speed, that kind of thing, they sent it. Well, it went around the horn. And during that trip, they hit a horrendous storm. This is the story. They hit a storm, they ended up in Hawaii. I think they just wanted to end up in Hawaii. Oregon or Hawaii, which do you want to go to? In any case, they ended up in Hawaii. They actually left that charter in Hawaii for another lodge over there. And from my understanding, that charter is actually still being used. So later on, in 1856, 55, 56, they sent another charter over. We received it in 1856. It was installed into the lodge on November 1st of 1856. That's the official start date of Columbia Lodge. So to put that in perspective, and this is the fun thing that I love about the Oddfellows here in town, the cemeteries here in town. When you look, and I'm sure you guys all being history buffs, when you look at this stuff, you think 1856. Darwin hit the Galapagos in 1835. They were homesteading in Montana in 1885 still, 1886. They were still homesteading a little bit in this area during that time as well. So finally, the state of Oregon, who knows when the state of Oregon became a state?
59.
1859. So we're actually 3 years older than the state of Oregon. We're still plugging away. Barely at times, but you know, every organization has up and downs. You know, good times, bad times, and we have our upswings, downswings, as did with the lodge. So lodge membership started with 6 members. It was those initial 6 members that started in the Dalles, made the request. They were hugely active that first year. They ended up with 25 members after that first year of operations, so to speak. So they were really climbing, they were getting notoriety in the area, they were doing what they needed to. And some of the comments that I had read through the books with regards to the Oddfellows was that they were always, because we help our fellow man, we donate to the needy and that kind of thing, they were always broke. They never had any money. They were always right on that fine line of, we have a dollar, we don't, we have a dollar, we don't, because there's, in this area during those days and those times, all these people that were coming in from the forest and coming in from the trail and all this, they were destitute. They had nothing. They were on their last leg. They needed food. They needed shelter. They needed help. Columbia Lodge gave it to them. And that's what they did. And so they were always in need of funds. They were always helping their fellow man. So 1885, 1890. This actually is a photo of some of the members of the lodge. I don't know their names. I recognize some of the faces. If you guys want to go through some of the books down there at the lodge, holler at me. We'll go down and see if we can figure out who they are. But the gentleman, let's see, the gentleman right here, I do know that he was a noble grand at one point in the lodge. I have seen pictures of him as a noble in our booklet. So, and then the women in this picture would be Rebecca's as part of the women's side of the group. This, and I can't figure out where this photo was taken. The notation on it shows that it was in the Dalles on May 15th of 1926. I do know that it's the Wasco Lodge, number 15. It's the Hood River Lodge and the Dalles Lodge. But the location, I cannot figure out where the location is. I don't know where that is, because it's not our lodge. There's a banner. Let's see. And I can't read the banner real well. It's right there. Something to the word. And I can't make out the first word in it. But so if any of you know where that is, it's where?
It may have been Montgomery.
Well, this was in 1926. It was after the fires.
Is there a possibility that could be the lodge that's right next to the West Bank?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Right in there where it is?
Oh. Yeah, because they've had encampments, which the lodge has encampments, which brings in a whole bunch of lodges in the state. And the lodge building that we had didn't accommodate for such large groups of people and large groups of crowds.
I would say maybe the Dalles Hotel.
Oh, I don't know. But anyway, so if somebody figures that out, let me know. So over the years, Columbia Lodge has moved quite a few different times, and there's a few discrepancies that I can't figure out through the timeline of where and when the lodge was. In some of the history that we have of the lodge, it shows one thing, and they owned a building, but they weren't using the building. It doesn't make sense to me. So some of this, with regards to lodge moves, they did finally get the location. It's a permanent location where we currently are on 2nd Street. We bought that on April 13th, 1904. The cornerstone was actually laid on Sunday, October 2nd, 1904. And they finished it that next spring. It was a very, very fast build. They would never be able to do a build like that in that amount of time now. And I don't know why, but anyway. So first location of the lodge, where they first had meetings, was on the corner of First and Union, and it was above Isaac's General Merchandise Store. They used that location. Some of you may not be able to see this photo, but I think Matthew Cleve sent it to me at one point. But this is the Dalles. Before the Dalles was here, you can see Mount Hood right there. Of course, the river, or Adams, sorry. I told you, I try not to mess up too much. So the white steeple there?
Yeah,
Oh, that might be. It might be further down then.
that would be the third building that was about right.
Yeah. So one of the early photos of the Dalles area, and then this, of course, you see now the landmark there is the church, St. Peter's Church, I believe.
Except, yeah, you might have said it would have been when that one was built.
Oh, okay. So I'm guessing that our lodge is somewhere right in here, or the location eventually will be. So 1859, 1860, meetings started to decline. They lost their momentum. As with any organization, especially fraternal organizations now, they struggle at times. And they had such an issue with it that they actually surrendered their charter and lost the designation of the lodge. So later in 1864, 7 of those original 25 members decided, hey, let's get this group going again. Let's get it back. Let's make it happen again and do some good. So they actually recovered the charter from the Grand Lodge in Oregon. They started the lodge again. When they went back to use the original lodge that they were using, or the location, they found that the Wasco Lodge number 15 had taken over that space. And so they had nowhere to meet. So they ended up moving into the upper floor on 2nd and Court with the Masonic Lodge. And so they shared that building and actually paid $18 a month for rent to use that, which to me, I think that's pretty steep.
It wasn't many.
But you know, we're givers. Giving it away, I don't know, anyway. So in 1870, the lodge moved to the hall on the northeast corner of 2nd Street in Washington, and it belonged to W.S. Ladd, Portland. There were some sort of and somebody may know for sure, but there's some sort of a legal business or legal house organization. And so they were there for a number of years. They rented that location for a number of years. And then in the flood of 1884 here in town, they had to vacate that location due to building issues and due to the Ladd Company wanting more space. They needed more space. They were growing. And so they essentially got kicked out. Fall of 1884, the lodge leased from Mrs. M.L. Booth. And I think you were talking about a booth here in town, weren't you? Was it?
Maybe.
Okay. And the second story for building on 2nd Street. They were there a short time, and then in 1881, this building was destroyed in the Holocaust fire. And I don't know if anybody knows about the Holocaust fire. It was devastating to the area. And so the fire devastated the lodge. It actually destroyed the lodge twice and all of the records twice. So all of our records in 1891, as part of that Holocaust fire that took out 20 blocks of the Dalles, square blocks of the Dalles. Residential homes. I finally found a newspaper article about it. There was 1,000 people without homes. They were homeless because of that fire. And it was absolutely devastating to the area. It destroyed everything that we had for the last 35 years. All of our records, all of our cemetery records, everything that we had. So in 80, and this is kind of where things get a little mixed up for me. So in 1889, they had decided they needed to get a permanent location for the lodge, and didn't want to keep moving around, didn't want to keep being pushed around in the area. And so they actually purchased the J.C. McFarland lot that was at 220 East 3rd Street, and they bought it for $4,500, which included a building. Now, why they weren't in that location at that time during the fire, I have no clue. Because out of that, it burned in the Holocaust fire of 1891, and with the insurance payment off of that, and then the sale of the property for the location, they bought 418 to 420 East 2nd Street. And I didn't know that until recently. I don't know why they opted there. So I don't have any information on that I can expand upon. So from September 1891 to March of 1905, the meetings were in the Knights of Pythias Hall, located on the 2nd floor of the Voigt block, 314 to 320. So here, again, they owned a building, but they were using somebody else's. I don't know why. It seems to me that if you bought it, you should use it, unless they were using it as a rental or something like that for another business. I don't know. So they were actually renting a small area in this Voigt block for $7, and then later, because they grew so much, they needed the other span or the other larger room, and started paying $10 a month. So March 1904, the committee was appointed to consider and report upon a hall location for the lodge. So they had, in 1889, gotten a group together as part of the lodge and did research on the area and said where we felt we needed to have a lodge. And out of that, that's when they bought our majestic home. And that was April 13th, 1904. 1904 was the authorization to purchase at 421 East 2nd Street. So as you can see, it's real similar to what we currently have, with one exception, this. And the windows are still there, the topper is still there. They began construction in 1904, and it was completed in the spring of 1905, the whole building, which astounds me that they could do that in that amount of time. I mean, it's a solid year now to have anything built, I think. And they actually had their first meeting on March 1st of 1905 in the building.
Must have been a mild winter.
Non-union. No, it's, sorry. So again, second fire. Fire devastates the lodge again, destroys it in the 1914 fire. So 1914, what happened in that fire was Lois Camini. She was working. She had dropped an oil lamp. She had slipped and dropped an oil lamp, and it started a fire. Caught her on fire. She was covered in oil. She was covered in flames. She ran out of the building, which was the granite work. It was a granite, marble works, and ran into the building across the street from her building caught in on fire and died from her burns. She lost her life. But out of that fire in 1914, which wasn't as devastating to the area as the 1891 fire, the Holocaust fire, it took out the lodge. And so the other angle on this, you can kind of see the gap right down here. The glass is all gone, it's all burned. The only thing that's left is the structure itself. There is still some char inside the building even now, today, from that fire. So they did reuse some of it. The footings are all still there, but they rebuilt the lodge. And in redoing it, they moved the meeting hall from the back area to the front of that building, filled in the original staircase that was that archway in the front, and made it into just the rental area, and then our entrance comes in on the side, on the other side of the street. So at this point now, we can talk about the cemetery. So that's kind of the history of the lodge. They got going, they continued going. Of course, they've had their ups and downs over the years, as everybody has. So in 1884, they started the Oddfellows Cemetery, and that's the one off of Cherry Heights here in town. And how they did this, I don't have a clue, because it actually started in 1884, 1885 was when they actually started the cemetery. But they incorporated it somehow so that the records show that it started in 1865.
Cook the books?
I don't know. I don't know how it happened, how they did it, how they got away with it. The location for the current cemetery there, we actually, there was a group that was associated with both the city and the lodge that had surveyed the area and decided that that was going to be the location for the cemetery. And because there were cemeteries in the area, but that was going to be the showcase. That was going to be the place for this major cemetery so that we could bury the dead as part of what we do. So these three citizens reported, said that was the best location. It was being vacated by the fort at that time, Fort Dalles, and they bought 30 acres from the U.S. government as part of Fort Dalles Military Reservation, and used that as the cemetery. Now, when they did that, there was a lot of different parts. They bought 30 acres from them. There was a bunch of roads, lots, plots, sections. If you've ever looked at the old plat maps of the city and how they laid out the city, there's roads, streets, all sorts of stuff. Cherry Heights was not originally there. It was over further, and they shifted it as part of this whole swap and haggle scheme to get the cemetery there in all one piece. Now, knowing that the lodge is destitute, always gives money away, is always struggling for funds, etc., they didn't have the money to buy it. It was $3,000 to purchase. So what they did, it doesn't mean that the members didn't have funds, the lodge just didn't have the funds. So the members, there was 15 of them, got together and said, okay, we'll buy this property, we'll use it as the cemetery, we will get paid off of the profits of the cemetery for X number of time until our loan to you is paid off. And it took approximately a year for them to do that. So the profits and everything went to these 15 people to pay off the purchase, and then once that happened, they deeded all of that over to Columbia Lodge. And that's really when the control went from these individuals over to Columbia Lodge, because they also didn't feel that it was right for the Columbia Lodge not to be doing this, and that it was being done by these 15 people and run and owned by 15 others. So through the years, in 1866, the GAR, which, anybody know what the GAR stands for?
Grand Army of the Republic.
Yep. So it actually was a designation of Grand Army of the Republic at one point, and then in 1956, when the last member passed away, the GAR was formally dissolved as part of that. So we still kind of have the designation. If you look at maps and things, it still says that it was a GAR cemetery there, but we don't go by that anymore, obviously. So. Other interesting things about it was that whole flat section out in front of the cemetery was actually, it was backfilled. So there's approximately 2 to 3 feet of dirt that was backfilled into that first area to build it up and create a surface that they wanted to have as a lawn material, so to speak. And we, to this day, when we're digging out there, we get about 2.5 feet down and we find this char layer that's about probably 4 inches thick, where a fire came through the area and then they backfilled on top of it. So it's kind of interesting to be in there and do that. The other interesting thing is when the fort was there, they would not allow the Indians to camp next to the fort. I don't know if anybody knew that, but they forced them to camp on the west side of Mill Creek. And so every once in a while we'll be out there and we'll be digging and all of a sudden we'll find a fire pit. Perfect rocks set in a circle, and in it, in the middle of it, will be glass bottles, garbage, and it's about 6-8 inches underneath the surface of the grass. And it always scares us because we don't know if there's actually somebody there, if it's a burial or what, and so we panic when we see it, but it's all okay, and we put those rocks back where they were, and we replace the bottles. We found a few from 1850 bottles out there, and there's a couple in my office. They're not worth a dime, literally, but they're pretty cool, and they have this iridescent look. And does anybody know what the iridescence is on a glass bottle?
UV? Is it UV?
No, it's actually the deterioration and decomposition of the glass. So when you start seeing these iridescent colors on the glass from being buried for so long, it actually is the glass decomposing. And so 150 years later, we find these bottles, and they're all this beautiful swirled colors and rainbow colors and everything, and then I find out, well, it's just decomposing. So other interesting things about the cemetery. Anybody know who this J.P. McInerney is? You know?
No, I know some others, but I have no idea what their connection is.
Okay, so he came in early on to the Dalles. He was a pioneer in the area, owned a grocery store, mercantile for years. So it's like 30 or 35 years. But some of the things that he was really interested in was the Chinook coal and oil prospecting in this area. So he and his partner did oil prospecting and coal prospecting, and actually at some point, according to this article, and I have yet to be able to figure out and document anything else. So they actually dug a tunnel under the current Oddfelllow Cemetery. So there's a tunnel, a mine through there that was a prospect. I have not a clue where it is. So if anybody ever hears about that, let me know. Because we haven't ever seen a divot from the mine shafts or anything falling in or that kind of thing. But some interesting things about the cemetery in the area. So improvements and upgrades. In '54, they put the first mausoleum. Mausoleum is an above ground building that we place caskets for above ground burial. It was off of a belief that there was a lot of requests from the area that they wanted this, the Dalles wanted it, and so they built it. They got it, the first one in 1954, and by 1956, I believe, it was completely sold out, and they needed to build another one. And the location that they built it on old bedrock. And so it's an area where they aren't going to be able to do burials in the ground. It wasn't going to be active for ground burials. And it's solid ground. Anyway, it's pretty firm area. In 1957, they did another one. That one was filling up, so they did another one in 1958. And then the final one was 1968. And there's not been any major additions to the cemetery since then until approximately 2014, 2015, when we put in the new niche wall up at the cemetery. So in 1854, that's when we put in our irrigation well. We actually used the Mill Creek watershed. And to put it into perspective, when irrigation runs in the summertime, we have a 40-horse irrigation pump that we pull approximately 400 feet up from in our well. And we pump about 350 gallons per minute when we're running that. Cost on that to run is, during the summertime, anywhere between $550 and $700 a month to run that for the power. That only covers that pump. Doesn't cover the office electricity, doesn't cover our second cemetery irrigation, doesn't cover anything else. That's only electricity to run that pump. So anyway, it's a struggle. So the new columbarium went in 2014, 2015, and as part of that, we replaced a lot of the sidewalk in that area as well. We're still working on some of the landscaping in that area, and we'll be able to finish up most of that this summer. So. Then, second cemetery. We're all about cemeteries. We want all the cemeteries we can get. So, in 1953, Parklawn Incorporated out of Portland started a cemetery here in town. In 1954, they did their first burials. That's when they really started doing some burials. They pre-sold caskets, pre-sold burials, pre-sold markers, you name it, they sold it and ran. It was a very interesting read with regards to the lawsuit between the state of Oregon and Parklawn Incorporated. Bottom line, Parklawn Incorporated was shut down and went bankrupt, and allowed Columbia Lodge to purchase via an auction, sheriff's auction, approximately 22.5 acres of Parklawn Incorporated. And that was the inactive cemetery, which right now is being used as cherry orchard up off of 3 Mile Road. So in 1975, we ended up purchasing the active cemetery, which is approximately 5 acres, 6 acres right in there, which gives us just about 30 acres up at that location. It's like 29 acres to be specific. So we have a lot of room to expand and move forward. But in 1975, we took over the operation of the 3 Mile Cemetery. So this is kind of where we get into some of the struggles. So over the years, there's been a lot of different sections, a lot of different managers. Each of them have their own ideas to what makes sense with regards to the books. 150 years goes on, everybody does their little tweaks to things and running. Some have run the cemetery very well. Others have struggled profusely and just haven't been able to keep it up. And more recently, prior to my arrival, about the previous 20 years, the cemeteries have been let go and really haven't been maintained, which is the reason I'm here. With members, active members, failed maintenance, cemeteries and buildings, they really did go into disarray. And they were hemorrhaging money. And again, as you remember when we first talked at the first of this, the lodge gave up its charter, shut down. Luckily, it was before the cemetery happened, but they were real close to that again. When I came in, they were probably within 6 months of probably shutting down and releasing that charter and walking away because there was no more members. So when I came in, this is what I came into the cemetery with, that I got to deal with. So if you look, this section right here is the veteran section at the very end. Right here is the county section, and that is not summer wheat. That is dirt, weeds, dead grass. Wasn't getting watered. This section here is some of our older section of the cemetery. We are still having problems with that section, but we do have plans to renovate that as well. We have in this section changed out every one of the sprinkler heads and updated that, and it is staying green now. And just so you guys know, the veteran section will go into the projects a little bit, but this is that flat area down in front of our office, and these are the mausoleums here. This section down here, before I came into the cemetery, hadn't had water in 6 years. So really the only section that had any kind of a green semblance of grass was this one right here when I came in. Pretty rough shape. Roads were mud. We had reports that people were slipping. People that were trying to get over to their loved ones couldn't make it, literally couldn't walk to see their loved one because there was so much mud and everything was in disarray. We still have a lot of projects that we're doing, but I'll kind of share some of that later. So in 2012, new management, I'm Craig, came to the lodge and cemeteries. We hit the ground running. We restructured. As part of that, we had a renewed focus. We were pushing to get the lodge going. We were pushing to get the lodge restoration on the building taken care of, and get the cemetery back to where loved ones could see their family members, and do it safely. You know, they wouldn't get stuck in the mud, so to speak, which was a reality. The roads were completely mud. They were actually getting stuck driving through the cemetery to get to their loved ones. And so one of the first things we did roads. And I tell you, that sapped almost every dime I had to do that. But I'll tell you this, that I don't know who that is. The roads are kind of bumpy because of him, but I will tell you this, that the gentleman that helped us with this, Kiwi Construction, he donated the use of this compactor, road compactor. And the only caveat to it was we had to find an operator. He donated the equipment, let us use it. He laid down all of the road grind off of the road projects. When they tear that up off the roads, they grind it up. We put down that, and I tell you, it's an amazing product. The community help with regards to getting this project going and done was amazing. The Dallas Concrete cut us a deal on the material. We had a local farmer donate the use of a road grader. We found a volunteer through the senior center and Meals on Wheels for a gentleman to come out that was he is pro. How he maneuvered that thing on some of those roads without hitting markers, without hitting concrete pillars, to this day, I still don't know how he did it. But he graded every one of those roads and got them ready for us to put down the road grind. And then after we put down the road grind, I went through, and I think I'm still shaking from the vibration of that thing, but it was fun to run. I love running that stuff. So anyway, so part of the other projects that we've done and the community help, we've had volunteers for Memorial Day, greeting guests, greeting people that come in. That was huge. I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate that. And that tells me that we're starting to get people that want to be associated with the cemeteries because they're starting to recover. We had an irrigation project with the Eagle Scouts, or not Eagle Scouts, sorry, Boy Scouts, which were shooting for the Eagle projects. So 3 Boy Scouts made it their project, and I funded the whole thing for them. they came in and revamped the veteran section of the cemetery at the Oddfellow Cemetery off of Cherry Heights. And it was one of those projects we just needed a nudge. We just needed that help from somebody else to come in, because all the projects that we do are myself and a couple other guys. And we have to do that between our normal maintenance. And we do it that thin because if we don't have the money to do these projects. So we have to be thin on everything else in order to generate enough funds so that we can do a $10,000 road project, or a $20,000 irrigation project, or something like that. So we do run really thin. But they came in, I had a plan, I laid it out for them. We actually now are running that veteran section using solar power. We put up a reader board panel that we will have a list of the burials in there for the veterans. Hopefully I'll have that done by Memorial Day. But it will show.
The shadow box?
Yes. Oh, I didn't take a picture of it.
No, is that what you're talking about, Joe?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we'll have a plexiglass face on it. We'll have a thank you plaque in there eventually. We'll have a list of names and how to locate them in the veteran section. But the real exciting part about this is that this automates the whole second half of my cemetery. So the Oddfellow Cemetery off of Cherry Heights is 40 acres. And they have finagled, horse traded with the county, all sorts of different things in order to get that 40 acres in there. But the whole second half, so roughly 20 acres of that cemetery, is all hand watered. We have to manually turn it on, manually turn it off. If we forget, that's a waste of water. If we can't get back to it to turn it off, it's a waste of water. So I had the boys install new sprinklers. We replaced every sprinkler in that veteran section. We put them all in pivots. So the 1954 sprinkler heads, those brass heads that were, we've all seen the little pop-up spray fountain heads. Those are all gone. They put in pivot heads so we can adjust them as the turf builds. We can adjust them. The control panel that's out there, they got the box that supports it and protects it. They got that donated. And inside it, we have all the control panels for the solar unit, the solar system, and that runs the panel and everything else. So from there, we had automated valves that they installed. From there, I can start installing automated valves in the rest of the cemetery, and I can expand that unit out to 48 circuits. So that dead area in the upper section, we can move into that area eventually and get that all automated. We can run wire down the other section and automate that, which reduces our amount of labor. So again, we're trying to be forward thinkers. Instead of running a half a mile wire for power, we can do it all right there. And we helped out, well, I shouldn't say we, they helped out me by doing their EVA projects. With the recovery of the cemeteries and what we've been doing, one of the key things that you were asking about animals in the cemetery that you haven't seen. I will tell you this, I have seen all but 2, I think, of these animals in the cemetery. I have not seen the bear, although I saw his scat. I have not seen the cougar, but I saw his tracks. And I have seen deer. The deer have come back in droves. There was a kill-off locally here last year, but before that, we had a herd of probably 17 that I was to the point where I was kind of walking in the middle of them and just talking to them and that. Just, I love the animals. And when the animals start coming back in, the deer, the coyotes, the foxes, we have 2 different kinds of foxes that come in. We're starting to see 2 different kinds of doves. This year, we saw about 15 turkeys come through the cemetery and roost in the trees. So that tells me positive things are starting to come back. This is the other thing I'm starting to see in the cemetery. Does anybody know what bird that is?
Bluebird bird.
It is. It's a western bluebird, and I tell you, it's the most gorgeous bird I have ever seen. And we have a friend that sets up and monitors in the area, and I talked with him and said, "What is this bird?" I said, "The colors are just iridescent blue. They're gorgeous." He says, "Well, I think that's a western bluebird that have an orange breast on it." I said, "Yeah." It's a western bluebird. I said, "Well, I'd love to put some birdhouses up for them." He goes, "Well, it's a waste of time. They won't be there." I said, "They don't live in town." Okay. So the next year, I look out and I see 2 sets. There's 2 pairs. And they're roosting in one of the trees. They're nesting in one of the trees out there. And last year we had 4 sets. And then this last fall, when I was counting them and looking at them, we have 5 sets of them now in the cemetery. And I tell you, if you ever really just want to see the most amazing colors, when that bird pivots and the sun hits that iridescence, it's amazing. Snakes. Don't have a clue as to what that is. To me, it looks like a water moccasin, but it's not.
Everything looks like a water moccasin egret.
I think I jumped like I thought it was a water moccasin. A beautiful little snake. I don't know what it is. It was black and kind of a charcoal color, and it was about this long. And it was down in the grass, and it was going after bugs and who knows what. But so we've seen that. Some of the deer we've seen. Restoration. So some of the other projects we've done, through the help of the SHPO grant and through the Historic Preservation Society, and then locally through Urban Renewal, we had the city and Matthew Cleve start a restoration on our building, and he was very instrumental in working with us to do the restoration on the front of the building. And none of you know, we were probably within about 5 years of that building crumbling, the front face of it crumbling. It was in such disarray from weather and age and disrepair. So as part of this, it repaired a lot of roof leaks that we had. They re-tuck pointed every brick on the front of the building. They cleaned off all the bricks, and they're a different brick. It's not a regular clay brick, it's more of a ceramic brick, it was very lightweight. I've never held a brick like that before, but I should have brought one in for everybody. So we are a historic building. Montgomery Wards has used us. This is the before and after. I don't know if you can see the color differences, but we've repainted. This whole top here was deteriorating. We were losing bricks off the face of the edge. They went through, cleaned all of this, tuck pointed it, and then painted that front ledge. And as some of you may know, we got tagged by our buddy out of Washington, and he put his little 2 bits with spray paint right there. He stood, and I saw the footprints on that ledge. Keep in mind, that's over 100 years old, and how that held up, somebody was watching out for that boy. He needs help. He needed help. And I think somebody was watching over him, because I wouldn't even put my hand on that. This is thin aluminum, and it was rusted. And how he stayed up on that, and that didn't come down. And he did that it was less than a year after we did the restoration of the face of the building. It was absolutely devastating to us. Through insurance and everything, we got it taken care of again and corrected. But the 2 spots here are actually they're reinforcement bars that are attached to the roof to hold that whole plate in Iowa area. This is some of the other that we recovered. This is the original marble on the base. This is they just had decided to paint over it. I don't know if it was because of disrepair or just a different thought process. This is some of the painted stones from the original cornerstone, 1904. So you can see the brick that they cleaned off, and they cleaned all this off, and they did a beautiful job. And we really thank the city and everybody for helping with that. So this, again, was the original configuration, and this is the current configuration. The entrance being down here on the side of the building. And then we now just have the two. We're not done with the restoration. We still have the side here, the north side, and the west side to do. And then we are and do have plans to remove the old 1960s, 1970s awning and go back to more of the historic cloth awnings for the buildings. And then these in here are the old glass windows that actually show down into the buildings, and we're looking at recovering those as well as part of the restoration project. So some of the things we've done roads, water filters, backflows, niche walls. I have changed out close to 1,300 sprinklers just at the one location. And we haven't even probably hit half of what we have there. Just to put it into perspective, we are doing a complete irrigation overhaul at 3 Mile. We're redoing that entire system. The filter and backflow, we've built a building over it now so that we don't destroy a $4,000 backflow unit to protect the Mill Creek watershed. And then equipment. This is the big one. When I came in, they were using lawnmowers for 40 acres that you would use in your front yard. Some of them were hand push mowers, others were the ones that you buy at Home Depot. And when you're trying to mow 40 acres of this, they get destroyed. So as part of that, we restructured some of our funding, our endowment funding. Some of what we had left, we reinvested it in different ways. And in about 4 years, we were able to produce enough to buy a dedicated commercial lawnmower, zero-turn diesel mower. We can't destroy it. No way we can destroy it. And I tell you, it uses less fuel, mows twice as fast, it's a lot more productive. So out of this also, we've been able to save for the last 6 years, and I finally have a backhoe instead of a back and a hoe to dig graves with. And so it's on order. We had a local business give us just an amazing deal on a brand new unit. It's a Kubota, and we now have an industrial, what you would use on a construction site